The South African Cities Network has released its State of the City report. It's published every 5 years and focuses on the role cities play in driving growth and development. Dr Jane Battersby Leonard from UCT's African Centre for Cities joins us now from our Cape Town studios to tell us more about the outcome of this year's study. Doctor, thank you very much for your time this afternoon. There's some evidence to suggest that at a more molecular level, cities are in a position to drive the economy. How successfully are they doing that?
No, certainly, there's increasing evidence that our cities are both places of residence, but also the economic drivers of our country. However, they're also places of structural inequality, of poverty, of unsustainable growth practices. So the challenge is how to acknowledge that growth and yet address some of these larger structural challenges.
And it's interesting what you're saying about the issue of inequality, particularly in the larger cities. We see a huge influx of people into these cities, yet there's a fair amount of exclusion from work and the like. Why do we fail to exclude more people in our economy, or rather fail to include more in our economy?
I think there's a definite challenge of how we achieve inclusive growth, and that is one of the focuses of the report. So from our side, the work that I contributed to the report has been around the issue of food security and how do we engage the food economy to move towards more inclusive growth and to achieve alleviation of poverty at the same time.
Well, what are the solutions to working towards food security in big cities?
Yeah, so conventionally we've tended to focus on just promoting urban agriculture as a solution. But we think if you look at a city, how much of a city's economy, how much of its social life, how much of its transport infrastructure is dependent on how food moves around the city, we think there's a number of interventions. So much is driven around how we assume people eat, whereas our work looks at how people do actually consume food, and therefore what are some of the opportunities? How might cities perhaps plan market spaces more effectively? How might they think about integrating formal and informal economies? How might we think about new ways of connecting housing to food? So those are some of the issues we're trying to get on the agenda.
Are there good examples overseas, particularly in developing countries, of people who've actually managed successfully to integrate housing with agriculture and food production?
Absolutely. So there's a number of examples around the world. The best known is a place called Belo Horizonte in Brazil, where they really took the question of food seriously and looked about how to integrate food into all facets of urban life. So they have innovative programs to connect school feeding to agriculture, to ensure that retailers are operating in lower income areas, selling local food to local people. So there are certainly examples that are out there. There's obviously examples in the global north, but I think it's important what we can learn from other cities in Africa and other cities in the global south.
I'm trying to think of some practical examples here. I mean, are we thinking of moving towards things like rooftop agriculture or maybe vertical hydroponics, something to that effect that is more suitable for growing food in cities?
That is one example, and certainly in inner cities that's a viable issue. But one of the things we're trying to think about is, we know that people travel long distances in cities. We know that people have long commutes. How do we provide opportunities for them to consume healthy, nutritious food which matches the way they move around the city? So thinking about how do you encourage the retail of healthier foods near taxi ranks? Those are the kinds of issues that we're trying to think through, and how does that apply? How does that connect to national policies? So we've got the new sugar tax coming in next year. How does that then amplify some of the work that cities can do?
That sounds like a bit of a tough thing, because at the same time our government is trying to attract foreign investment into the country. We've got these big chains like Burger King and the like coming into South Africa. We want that investment, but at the same time we want our population to eat healthy. How do we balance those two?
That is a complex balance, and I think it's a both-and situation. I don't think we're going to be able to get rid of the big players who are perhaps driving some of the challenges. But how do we create an enabling environment that allows both to be in place? Surely there must be some kind of potential regulation of the large players and enablement of the smaller players. And so I think it's a matter for cities to think about how they can use food to move a number of city agendas along. So look at the way in which a different approach to food can restructure the economy. Look at the way in which a different approach to food can help us think differently about transport. So our articulation is that food is rather central to urban development because it touches on so many facets of urban life. And so if you look at the larger State of the Cities report, it touches on many aspects of urban life. And part of the joy of this is trying to see how we bring these complex livelihoods together.
I'd love to see how the experts like you managed to do that. Thank you very much for talking to us today. That was Dr. Jane Battersby Leonard from the University of Cape Town's African Centre for Cities.